Hey everybody! In this video I'm going to go over some of the basics of string gauges, and especially if you're new to guitar, figuring out what string gauge to buy might be pretty confusing, or at least I certainly found it to be so. Also, if you're new to guitar, welcome! We're happy to have you as part of a growing online community of guitar players here to inspire each other, share knowledge, and create thoughtful discussion on the internet. But just don't search Tonewood. Just don't do that, stay away. Okay, so string gauges. There's a whole lot of different kinds out there, but we're first going to focus on 3 sets of semi-standardized gauges that you're probably going to see most often. You got your 11s, your 10s, and your 9s. You'll see these numbers on the pack, and they refer to the thickness of the high E string, which is the thinnest string of the set. So if you have a pack of 9s, the high E string is 9 thousandths of an inch. If you have a pack of 10s, it's 10 thousandths of an inch, and so on. And the rest of the strings follow suit. So you might be asking yourself, which string gauge should I use? Why would I want thicker strings? Why would I want thinner strings? Well, let me start by telling you a story of when I started playing guitar. So when I first had to decide which strings to buy, I looked at what the gauges were called. And 11s were called mediums, 10s were called lights, and 9s were called super lights. And my thinking was that the lights and super lights must be for young kids or beginners who can't handle the standard medium set. So I bought 11s and stuck with them for years and years, just thinking that those were the proper string gauge. As I continued playing, I learned more and more about the other string sets, but I still stubbornly went with 11s. My thought process for why I stuck with them went something like this. 11s are the way guitars are meant to be strung. That's why they're called mediums. And yeah, they're harder for me to play, and my hand really hurts sometimes, but good! My fingers are getting swole! And my hands did really hurt after I would play for a little while, and 11s were clearly not the best choice for me. Because with thicker strings comes more tension, so the strings are harder to press down and you have less ease of play, which was hurting my hands. My hands were not as muscly as maybe I hoped that they were, and if you're just starting out, you'll have some fatigue there building up those muscles, but if it happens every time you play, you should probably think about changing string gauges. But ease of play isn't the only thing that the tension affects. On a major plus side to a higher tension, you also have much greater tuning stability. With higher tension, your guitar's a lot less likely to wave in and out of tune when you're fretting, or say go sharp when you strum real hard. But what if you want to bend your strings over to other notes? A higher tension will make bending a whole lot harder. And inversely, if you have thinner strings and less tension, it will have the same effects, but in the opposite direction. And yeah, there's probably a small tonal difference with the different tensions. Higher tension will be a bit louder, but I don't really think that... More volume, more pain, better tone! 1, 2, 3. There are 2 huge factors that I didn't consider when I first bought those strings. First, I had my guitar tuned to E standard, which is how most guitars are tuned, but there's a ton of guitar players that do not tune that way. A huge amount of guitar players, particularly for certain genres, will downtune their guitars, loosening the strings, giving it less tension so that they can get lower notes. And then to compensate for the less tension you're getting with the lower notes, it makes a whole lot of sense to get a thicker string gauge. For me, if I'm going to tune my guitar down to D standard, 1 step down, it makes a whole lot of sense and is a great choice for me to use 11s. And if I want to tune my guitar down all the way to where I can play Cannibal Corpse and scare kids off my lawn, then I might use like 13s or something. So people using different tunings wasn't really something that I considered. And secondly, I was playing a Fender Stratocaster, and I didn't take into consideration its scale length. A Fender Stratocaster has a bit of a longer scale length than say a Les Paul, which has about an inch shorter scale length. Scale length refers to how long the strings are going to be on a guitar. So how much space is there between the nut and the bridge. And guitars vary quite a bit. The same set of strings will be under a lot more tension on a guitar with a longer scale length than a guitar with a shorter scale length, which will have much less tension. So to go back to ridiculing my 18-year-old self, 11s were not the right string gauge for me, and I was frankly so surprised at how much more I enjoyed playing once I went to a lighter string gauge. Nowadays, my preferences generally lie with 10s if I'm playing clean, and 9 if I'm playing anything distorted. And then 11 or lower gauges if I'm going to be tuning down my guitar. 13 to get those kids off my lawn. Because with clean playing, I prioritize having a good tuning stability, having a good ease of play, and I don't really ever bend. For metal or distorted playing, I'm usually playing a lot faster, so ease of play is much more important. I'm a lot more likely to bend. A lack of tuning stability is less of a big deal, and any compromises to the tone from that lower tension, once you distort the guitar signal a whole lot, those are going to be completely unhearable. Well, as long as I'm foolishly sharing my opinions on the internet, I also think it would be more accurate to call 10s mediums, 11s heavy, and 9s light. Or at least that's just how I see it. Whew. Well, this has been quite a lot of information, and it would be impossible for me to tell you what the perfect string gauge for you would be. But here's a good way to narrow it down. If you're looking for tuning stability, you're gonna be tuning down your guitar is a short scale length, you're more of a rhythm chordy player, then these things will have you leaning towards thicker strings. If you're looking for ease of play, you like bending, your guitar might have a long scale length, you're more of a fast type lead player, these things will have you leaning towards thinner strings. I'd encourage you to try out a whole lot of different sets and see what works for you. Maybe every time you're gonna change your strings anyway, try a different gauge or a different brand. Getting the right string gauge for your instrument or your playing style will have miles difference in your playing. And there's so many different types of gauges and brands out there that there's really something for everyone if they're willing to look for it. And side note, one other type of string set that I would really like to mention here are light top, heavy bottom strings. This is where the highest 3 strings are a light gauge and the lowest 3 are a heavy gauge. So if you're a rock or metal player who usually uses the lowest strings for, your power chords, your rhythmic stuff, you want that tuning stability there, but you use the highest 3 strings for your fast, bendy leads, then light top, heavy bottom strings are definitely something you should check out. And another type of string set I would like to mention here are string sets for extended range guitar, of which I now have 2 signature sets with clear tone that I'm really proud of. These are for 8-string guitars, and the clean is what I feel should be the 8-string version of a standard 10 gauge set, and the metal is what I feel should be the standard 8-string version of a 9 set. If you're interested, I have a coupon code that will give you 10% off these or anything on Cleartone's website. This is the brand that I've found works best for me. The main difference with these is that they're treated, so they feel like regular strings, but they're protected from corrosion and humidity and your nasty, nasty sweat. This does make them a bit more expensive, but it also means that they last quite a bit longer and retain their brightness and crispiness. And for someone like me, especially when I'm on tour and my set is comprised so much of like really sparkly harmonics, that's really important to me. But maybe that's not as important to you, and there's a whole lot of different brands out there, but if you want to try these, here's a coupon code. All right, well, I hope this was helpful and maybe steered you in the right direction with string gauges. If you would like more videos on this channel, you could subscribe. They're not all gonna be edited like this. In fact, a lot of them are just downright bad. This is the second channel. They're not that bad. They're fun, but they're not stuff that I put a lot of, tremendous amount of work into. This is probably the peak of the amount of work I put into videos here. Then other stuff goes on the main channel. Well, I'll stop rambling at you. Thanks so much for watching, and have a good one.